The questions are underway now, right now. The House Oversight Committee on Obamacare and Jonathan Gruber, and you have to listen to this exchange. Listen to this.
Said that your statements were inexcusable and insulting. I certainly understand when someone gets caught saying something as inflammatory as what you've said, how you might want to recant it. However, some of the things that you said were substantive based, and although they may be inexcusable and insulting in that they were said, in the end, they may be true. And I want to walk you through some of the statements that you made that were substantive in nature rather than the statements that you made about the American voter. Now, you've said that you did complex micro-simulation modeling. It sounds like a relatively basic model to me. You take from one and give to another. It's a basic equation of wealth redistribution, and that's called a tax. And you've made many statements about the Obamacare plan as being a tax, and I want to go through those. Now, I want to remind you, this is not the casual conversation that you've had in the conferences where you've insulted the American voter. This is actually a hearing where you took an oath. You said on March 16th, 2011, the only way we could take it on was first by mislabeling it, calling it a tax on insurance plans rather than a tax on people. And we all know it's really a tax on people who hold those insurance plans. A tax. On January 18th, you said if you're a state and you don't set up an exchange, that means your citizens don't get the tax credits, but your citizens will pay the taxes that support the bill. A tax. October 30th, in 2012, you said we just tax the insurance companies. They pass it on in higher prices that offset the tax breaks we get. It's very clear, you know. And that's when you went on and insulted the American voter as to the fact that they couldn't understand that basic equation. And then on October 17th, you said this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Now, I know, Mr. Gruber, that you believe that your statements were inexcusable, insulting, but they do appear to be true. You're not here recanting today your statements with respect to the tax aspect of Obamacare, are you?
I'm here today to say that any conjectures I made about political...
This is not a conjecture, Mr. Gruber. I mean, conjecture is, I believe it may have been, someone may have been thinking, perhaps they were, perhaps it was. This is your straight-up statements. These are not conjecture. Is it your purpose today to recant Obamacare as a tax?
It is my purpose today to come forward and elaborate and straighten out the interpretation of a series of comments that I made and to apologize.
Excellent. Let's do that then. Let's clarify it. Mr. Gruber, you made these statements, did you not?
If I don't recall exactly, but...
You don't recall. Now, one of them we actually saw on video. Do you recall that one?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, these statements, we'll enter them for the record, and I can't imagine how you don't recall your own statements because the American voter has seen them over and over again as you've called them stupid. Do you deny making these statements, Mr. Gruber, even though you don't recall them? Do you deny calling Obamacare a tax?
If you're reading my actual quotes, then I don't deny it. I am
reading your actual quotes.
Then I don't deny it.
Okay.
I mean, it's really amazing. Really amazing. Now, what's going to happen from here?
Nothing. Sadly, nothing.
It's kabuki theater.
He gets away with it. The Obama administration gets away with it. This guy was one of the architects of the plan. For him to come in here and say, "Oh, no, the evasiveness of these guys every time they get into
the question
is,
will it change now that the Senate is changing hands?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
And not to correct you, Pat, but very specifically, Jonathan Gruber said he is not an architect of President Obama's health care plan.
Did he say that?
He is not. That was in his initial statement, yeah. So, I mean, he's not that.
What do you think is going to happen, Stu?
He has to say that now.
What do you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm. I lean towards nothing. I think that they will try this. The most significant thing in there is not the taxes. It's not whether he called the American people stupid. It's whether the difference between the subsidies go to the states or the subsidies go to the federal exchange. That's the Burwell case that's going to the Supreme Court. And he's going to try to back his way out of that. He's going to give, throughout the day,
Explain
different
what
disclaimers.
That means.
Basically,
pretend that, we had a life outside of Jonathan Gruber.
All right. I mean, in that weird world in which you're not thinking Jonathan Gruber 24/7, basically, right. Obamacare was written to give all that free money that you're so happily donating out of your tax dollars to people who theoretically can't pay for health care. And that money goes to them through these exchanges. There are some that are state exchanges, like the Oregon State Exchange, and then there's the federal exchange, which you know as healthcare.gov. The federal exchange. So the way Obamacare is written, it says specifically that people who go to healthcare.gov do not get the free cash. You don't get any free money for going and signing up at healthcare.gov. You only get it when you go to a state exchange. And that was written, as Jonathan Gruber described it, as a way to force the states to create their own exchanges. So they had to come up with their own fancy websites, and they wanted them to do this. So they figured if they made all the free money going to only people with the state exchanges, all the politicians in those states would say, well, we need the free money, so let's do it that way. Of course, the opposite happened. It was so unpopular, and Obamacare was so unpopular, 34 states decided to go with the federal exchange. So in that context, 34 states now would not get any of the free subsidies, and therefore in those states, Obamacare would likely fall apart, getting rid of a giant chunk of this program. And that's what the lawsuit accuses them of. And it's exactly how it was outlined by Gruber in his caught on camera moments. He said that is the reason we did it. The Democrats now are saying, well, we didn't mean that. It was just a typo. It was just a speako. We spoke it incorrectly. But, of course, the Supreme Court typically goes on what's written in a law.
Bullcrapo.
Yeah, but it does sound like bullcrapo. And that's what, of course, it is, and what Jonathan Gruber is trying to lie about today in front of, under oath.
Ranking Democrat, here's Gruber. What does he say?
I'm sure he's proud of the job that Gruber has done and has no problem with anything he's ever said. Good job. Thank you for
As
your
far
service.
as I can tell, we are here today to beat up on Jonathan Gruber for stupid, and I mean absolutely stupid comments he made over the last few years. That's how he began.
Okay.
Let me be clear. I'm extremely frustrated with Dr. Gruber's statements. They were irresponsible, they were incredibly disrespectful, and they did not reflect reality, and they indeed were insulting. I was in Congress when this law was debated, and Dr. Gruber does not speak for me or the chairman or the other committees who worked tirelessly on this bill. We debated this legislation for nearly a year before it finally passed and signed by the president. Never once did I believe or did anyone suggest that we were somehow hiding our goals from the American people. But worst of all, Dr. Gruber's statements gave Republicans a public relations gift in the relentless political campaign to tear down the ACA and eliminate health care for millions of Americans. So what happened was Gruber gets up. You think you're getting cover from anybody, Jack. You're dead to them. Ends justify the means. You're dead to them. Well, where does this go? I have no idea. My guess?
Nowhere. It is easy to throw him under the bus, though, because he's not
trash.
He's not an elected official. Yeah, he's trash. They've used him. Now just discard him. Okay, they were singing his praises before, and we've heard it, and we've played it from Nancy Pelosi all the way to the President of the United States. They loved him. He was part of this. He was one of the architects. He wrote a portion of it.
Now, not
he
so
admitted
much.
to that, and now they can just spit all over him
Yeah.
and kick him to the curb.
Yeah.
Easy for him.
Yep.
Easy. They
Yep.
don't care.